Howdy folks, it's your friend Fishing with Dom. Today we're going to do some talking about what you should be using when you are flipping for bass in cover. I hope you like it. Let's check it out. Hey, did you know that rhinos are just chubby unicorns? Because I sure didn't. Shout out to my friend Eric for giving me this shirt for when he went to Vegas. I really like it. It's pretty cute. A little big, but I can't wait to fish in it. And it's actually inspired me to use the word rhino as a new adjective to describe a big bass. And when I'm thinking about big bass, I'm thinking about flipping into heavy cover. Something I've grown to be pretty darn alright at, in my opinion, over the years. I'm going to try to hold back, actually, in future videos when it comes to me saying that I'm good with certain techniques, because I need to start proving it with more more film of fish being caught. So expect more of that in the future. I've got about 3 weeks left until I'm on summer break from university, and things are going to be alright. So we're going to talk about flipping bass today, and in particular largemouth bass. When you're flipping, most of the time you're not flipping for smallmouth, but I'll show you two of the outfits I have, what I use, and a few tips and tricks to the trade. Two rods I use for flipping. I use a medium heavy, moderate fast action tip. This is the same rod that I spinnerbait fish with. So if you want a rod for sparse cover fishing, you can use your spinnerbait rod. And then for the thick stuff, I'm using my heavy power, fast action, extra fast action tip meat stick. This is the bad boy I frog fish with too. This is the big boy. This is my broomstick to throw into the nastiest cover. But let's start from the bottom and work our way up. When I am just looking around lily pads, around sparse cover that you might find around docks, that you might find around boats, and I just want to drop my bait down in there, a medium heavy does the job no problem. And sometimes those fish are going to be a little bit more pressured to react to a strike than bass that are sitting in the thick stuff. So fluorocarbon, solid choice of line, invisible underwater, doesn't have much stretch, super sensitive. I have myself, this year I'm going to be using tungsten for my flipping weight. In the past I've been using lead, but you should be using tungsten because it's more dense than lead, and it's easier on your line than lead. After a while, the line insert for lead, especially some of the weights I've used before in the past, it can wear down your line after a while, but tungsten, generally, it's a bit smoother. You pay for better quality stuff, you get a better quality experience. And I've added a punch skirt. You don't need to do that. Sometimes you can, sometimes you don't have to. And then I've got my flipping bait of choice here. A lot of the times when I am flipping, I'm using the Berkeley Power Bait or the Havoc Pit Boss. It comes in both lines, actually. Just the Havoc doesn't have the Power Bait scent. But this is what I'm throwing when I'm around sparse cover. Medium heavy action. It's a 6.4 to 1 gear ratio. This is my Revo S. This is my baby I've had for a long, long time. I've caught a lot of fish with her. And this line, it's a 17-pound test. Some guys, they like to use 20. Some guys down south, when they're throwing it around lily pads and the sparse timber, they like to use 25 even. But generally speaking, if you're flipping, depending on the circumstance of what your fishing is, 17, 20, 25-pound fluorocarbon gets the job done. You get yourself, tungsten. You get yourself your flipping hook. Oh, gotta get her back here. You toss this around docks. You toss this around wood, lily pads, whatever it may be. This could be an excellent way to catch largemouth bass when they're not in the thick stuff and you're cruising the shallows and you want to cover ground. A lot of the times during high sun. On my lake, I live on a private lake that is controlled pretty well throughout the year with weed regulation, so we don't get really, really thick growth out on my lake too much of the year. It's just around the shallow flats, there'll be a little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here and there, and then there'll be a few mats far and few in between, but you really have to look for them. So with this style of flipping, middle of the day when that bite tends to slow down and those fish are hunkered into structure, that's what I'm using in the sparse cover. But when it comes to the thick stuff, and I'm fishing in reeds, and I'm fishing in thick pads and mats and pencil rods. I'm giving them the beans with the big boy. I got my quick reel. This is just an Abu Garcia Pro Max, 7-to-1 gear ratio. I'm getting over 30 inches per crank with this bad lad. So that means when I'm giving this bait a toss out there, or even my frog for this instance, when I'm fishing heavy cover, I give it one crank and that bait's coming back to me. I don't want to waste any time when I am on the water. And I'm using a braid because when I'm fishing in that really, really thick stuff, I gotta pull them out of there. I gotta horse them out. Some people say, "Oh, you haven't tried to fight your fish in the grass." No, you can't. You can't afford to do that sometimes. It's just too much stress on your line and too much stress on your rod. If if you're not using a super line like I am. This, for instance, is a super line that I've had around for a little while. This is the Trilene braid in a size 40. A 40 is as small as I go because I don't have super thick stuff in Michigan that I'm fishing most of the time, unlike guys in southern Florida are fishing most of the year. A 40 will do. I like to fish I fish the 50 most of the time just because it's got a little bit of a larger line diameter. But I spooled up actually just for this video demonstration, and it actually fit. All of it fit on the reel pretty well. Just got to work it in so it sits a little bit better. I know it might be a little ugly right now, but 40, 50, 65, you know, in the really thick Okeechobee stuff, that's what you need. But whatever line you go with when you are heavy flipping, the thick stuff, whatever super line you're going with, I recommend making sure you get a radial style constructed braid. That means a braid that is round. On your bait caster, you want something round. You don't want a super line that is optimized for spinning reels. These are going to be your thermally fused lines, your fire lines, whatever it may be. The real flat stuff that's designed for spinning reels to wrap around the arbor and be casted really far. Because the mechanics of a bait casting reel and a spinning reel are two totally different things, you need a round braid. That's why I like to use the Trilene braid, really nice and round. It's really slick. I've used Spiderwire Stealth before. I've also used Suffix 832. That's really good stuff, but I don't fish with it anymore because it fades pretty quickly compared to a lot of other braids. And that's why I'm still fishing with this Trilene braid. I don't know a lot of people who still use it just because it came out, I'd say 3 or 4... Oh, definitely 3 summers ago, because it was 2015 when I bought my first spool. When I was working at a local department store, the first spool we had, I immediately bought it, and I fell in love with it ever since. It handles very good, has very little memory, and the color doesn't fade. But if you're ever using a braid and it's starting to fade, I always keep a Sharpie marker or magic marker in the boat with me or in my tackle box, and I'll take the the 10, 12 inches or so above my flipping weight, and I'll just take this marker and I'll just run the tip of it just along that line, give it a nice little black coating so it doesn't look so unnatural in the water, because it honestly surprised me when I was started to fish super lines a few years ago. Oh, this might have been 7 or 8 years ago, because the lines, I feel like the dyes used in super line were a lot different than they are now. I've seen braids before. The more you fish with them, the whiter they become. And with the Suffix 832, it almost became white. And it's good line, it just faded a lot for me, and that's why I don't fish with it anymore. But if you have experienced any line fade, keep a marker in the boat, does the job just fine. So I've got myself my tungsten. A lot of the times, this is as small as I go. 1/2 ounce Swagger tungsten, bobber stop. This is a different flipping hook I have here. This is a River to Sea. It's a 6/0. It's kind of big. It's a 6/0 River to Sea flipping hook, as designed by Ish Monroe. The new Jack flipping hook. I bought these at a garage sale last summer. I'm not 100% sure if they still make these. I've never seen these before, but hey, it's good to see my friend Ish Monroe down here in the Fishing with Dom Studios. Hey Ish, thanks for coming out. I really appreciate it. Take it easy, buddy. But as far as that, I'm not going to get into the debate today whether or not you should snell your flipping hooks. In the heavy cover instance, I'm just going to tell you I do. So that weight sits on the eyelet like that, and I get better hook sets. But when I am flipping into heavy cover, I'm waiting for that bait to sit there for that bass to come through. If I'm throwing it around sparse cover with my lighter rod on that fluorocarbon, it's not going to be so much a sit and wait for them to pick it up. It's going to be more of a reaction response. So I'm going to put that bait down there, pick up on it a little bit, see if he feels it, and then I'm going to sock it to him. So with the sparse cover on the fluorocarbon and the medium heavy powered rod, I decided not to snell it, just to tie straight to it. Brandon Palaniuk, Major League Fishing Touring Pro, I almost said Bassmaster Elite Series Touring Pro, yikes. He is not into snelling, so this is the year I am going to really find out if it makes a difference. Going into it, I think it does, and I can definitely understand why it does when I'm fishing in the stained, higher, dirtier, heavier cover. But when I'm throwing it around sparse stuff, you know, I have reason to believe that when this comes down, I'm not going to be letting it sit on the bottom all too much. They're going to have the opportunity to go for it, and they're just going to absolutely take it. So that's what I got going on here today. A few of my favorite flipping hooks that I use. I'm going to be using that River to Sea Ish Monroe design. As usual, I'm going to have my Trocar TK130. I also use the Berkeley Fusion 19 flipping hooks. They all work really well. When those bass put the bait in their mouth, in instances like that, they attack it, because in that heavy cover, they're hiding out in the middle of the day. They're waiting to be more active when the sun isn't as high. If they have the opportunity to find a meal, whatever it may be, they're going to go for it. They're going to hammer that bait. Most of the time, when I'm flipping, if they're going to take it, they're going to take it. But when they do, bam! It's never a subtle strike when I'm flipping. But that's just my experience. You could also use a flipping jig, just a jig design with a little cone head to it, so it punctures through the mats or the reeds, whatever you're fishing in. But I don't fish with flipping jigs, so I'm not going to talk about them too much. I'm just going to leave it at that. If you use a flipping jig, let me know in the comment section below how you like it. I'd love to pick your brain about it and perhaps even try it out this summer. You know what I'm saying? But make sure you get a bait that's nice and slender. I know I talk about this power bait Pit Boss a lot. Very slender bait, punches through it, everything really quickly. I like to use power hogs. I like to use different beaver style baits, and some crawdads work better than others. And this year I'm going to try to be working different creature style baits in heavy cover. I'm just going to be testing out to see whether or not if they get down to where I want them to get down to or not. But got a lot coming this year as far as the heavy cover game. If you have any ideas or suggestions for future videos or any tips as I try to get into strengthening my skills when fishing in heavier cover for largemouth bass, let me know in the comments section below. I'd love to hear from y'all. But until next time, I'm Fishing with Dom. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.